big thank you to Mario Bruggmann for being a part of our Procurement League Thursdays. What we do on Procurement Thursdays is, Mario, we try to bring thought leaders who are going to come and enhance and evolve our thinking. That's always really helpful. So you know what I'm going to do, Mario? I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but you've done so much and you're a jack of so many trades. To you.
Yeah, obviously. I'm in procurement since 25 years, more or less. There are bad people who usually say that this is the only thing I can do. I always say I could do other things, but they are not that much fun. Because I think the field of procurement is really opening up a lot of possibilities still today. And it's a great playground where you can still make a difference to every business. What I'm doing since February this year is I'm running the company Global Sourcing Services in Switzerland and China as CEO. We are a service provider, so basically the customers come to us and we source and manufacture. And if I say manufacture, I usually mean assemble the products for them. So we are not having any own machines or something like that. We are really just doing mainly benchtop assembly and testing, and the customers are coming to us with a very big variety of different products. We are quite strong in the field of medical devices, where really the big players even are customers of us, and we are delivering sub-assemblies to them for either machine or smaller devices or hospital beds, or like all kind of different stuff. Then we have the #1 cable car manufacturer from Switzerland, who is basically purchasing from us all the seats for his cable cars, and a lot of different other stuff. A packaging machine supplier, the #2 in the world, where we actually supply a lot of sub-assemblies to very big production lines that they are doing. And it's our business concept is always that we kind of ensure that the companies in Western Europe, and mainly in the German-speaking area of Europe, means Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, can profit from the offering that Asia has to them, price-wise, but of course more and more also technology-wise and stuff like that. And to make it really simple, our slogan is Swiss quality made in China. And that's actually what we really do. So we ensure that we get the highest quality standards for the highest quality standard products manufactured over there.
That's really interesting. So basically, you make the Asia China market come alive for all of Europe. I'm sure there's a big demand for that. So Mario, China has over the last many decades got a bad reputation. In India, they always say, oh, it's Chinese stuff, don't buy this, that, right? How do you manage some of that reputation that China has got? What do you do? How do you manage it?
It's actually interesting because, as I said, I'm in the business since 25 years. Meanwhile, when I started in the very early days of my career to be engaged in sourcing in Asia, and more or less all over Asia, and throughout my career, I was sourcing from many different countries. At that point in time, really, most of the companies who went to source in China, they just wanted cheap stuff. And probably also rather simple stuff, and really the main driver to do it was just price, and therefore in many of the cases the lack of quality that at that point in time you probably had was not a big deal to those products. But during the years where I'm involved in it, I really must say that China developed a lot. You can find some of the biggest companies in the world in manufacturing in China. And that's why, from my point of view, the bad reputation that was probably there in the beginning did actually reduce quite a bit over the last 2 decades. So if today we are talking to potential customers or to whatever sourcing department who might want to work together with us, We are actually not really having a reputation problem, except, of course, now in the last 2 years, where the discussions around the zero COVID strategy that the country has or something like that are probably becoming a bit more dominant. But that's not about the product quality overall. And I don't know whether you know that, but for example, for Tesla cars, you can actually get them made in the United States, or you can get them made in China. And I can tell you, if you go to forums in Europe where Tesla drivers talk about their cars, they basically always say, make sure that you get one from China because the quality there is way better, which is actually interesting, right? So it doesn't seem to be this bad reputation anymore. And then, of course, on the other side, our business concept is to have also Westerners in our factory in Shanghai. So we also have two Westerners there. The head of operations as well as the head of quality are German people. And of course, they are introducing a very stringent quality control, which also means that we visit our suppliers very regularly. So it's not that we only see them twice a year, we rather see them twice a week. And therefore, we are really making sure that we are picking the best companies that really manufacture according to the highest standards, because you can imagine we just made about 3 or 4 weeks ago our ISO 13485 certification. So we are now officially medical certified. And you can imagine that we need suppliers that can comply to the requirements that we actually have in those standards. And it's actually possible, and I would say even rather easy to find them. But of course, there is a big risk in China, and you might find others that are not really having the same quality standards.
No, I fully hear you, Maria, and I also feel like since our big topic today is the globalization and how global procurement is becoming, I think a big byproduct of capitalism is for one industry to put another down, for another industry to put one down. So bad reputations, good reputations, cheaper is better. A very high cost is better. Like all of these things, I think, are just what we have to navigate and work through every day. So I actually personally really like the fact that you're sourcing from Asia and sending it to Europe. Because in India these days, everyone's like, oh, if you're going to America, get this. If you're going to Europe, get this. So it's just good to see that reverse movement actually come alive in front of us. So Maria, in spirit of honesty, you've been here, you've been in this field for the last 25 years, you've been sourcing from China for a long time. What do you do with, I'm sure there have been times where you've got bad feedback or things haven't worked out or panned out as you'd hoped for them to. Did it break your spirit? Did you kind of feel like I need to change my strategy, change my market, or are you just adamantly stuck on? But my more important question is, how did you make that decision? What would help you make that decision?
Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty difficult to break my spirit, probably just because the spirit for what I'm doing is that strong. So I would say it's close to being unbreakable. So no, it never really broke my spirit. But of course, sometimes, specifically during ramp-ups or so, you might face challenges. To be honest, the challenges are probably even the reason why I'm doing that, because that at the end makes the job funnier and makes the job interesting. Because you basically grow on challenges. You don't grow on administration or doing always the same thing. To me personally, it was always the objective and kind of my leading principle to achieve something with people from different cultures all over the world, different understanding, different backgrounds, stuff like this. And as long as this was still part of the job, I think everything is possible to solve. And the reality somehow proves me right. I mean, nowadays I have friends all over the world, because we became from business partners to friends over time with many people, which share the passion of achieving something together. And I think that's something where you really have a big chance to make a difference in procurement. Now, were there Were there moments where I was probably also thinking about, changing my strategy or doing something completely different? Yes, of course. Everyone has such moments, I think. But they were obviously short enough that I never really did it. Or as my spouse would say, we usually go for a week of vacation if that happens, and after that week everything looks different and you start over again. And that's kind of what I'm really doing. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I always feel like I work in a very difficult space myself. Other than Procurement League, I work with gifted kids on the spectrum of autism. And over the last 15, 16 years, there have been many times around, and maybe I should do something else. And my family is like, you could do something else. But I feel like every time you feel like drifting away from the complexity that you're in, it's a sign that you need to get back into the complexity you're in, because you're trying to solve something and you're escaping. So I just feel like it's a good reminder to pull you back to your work. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I loved your answer.
It's actually interesting. If I may add that, it's actually interesting. Whenever in the past I was about to leave one of my workplaces and basically change to another company or something, I usually got calls from my suppliers who wanted to hire me as a salesman, which was kind of crazy to me because I always said, why do you want to hire me in sales? Because sales is absolutely nothing for me. I just don't like it at all. I'm much more at home on the procurement side. But what that definitely explains is that probably the type of people that you need in order to do a good sales or a good procurement are not that different. Huh? I mean, at the end, I think on both sides of the table, we need to have open-minded people, willing to find solutions, willing to work together and really making partnerships. And from that point of view, I think it's from a mindsetting point of view and from a skill set point of view, probably salespeople and procurement people are not even that different. It just depends a bit on what you like more.
Fully agree, 100% agree. I think when you're passionate about something, you automatically are selling it and negotiating to get the best price for it every day. All right. So two parts of the next question, Mario, and these might be a little sensitive sometimes to even answer. Number one, what challenges have you faced thus far? But what I'm really curious about you as a person is you're very kind, you're enthusiastic, you're generous. Just like your messages, you reaching out to people, you sending the reminder for people to join in and all of that. These are just qualities we should naturally cherish in the corporate world, right? But what I'm seeing is, or in the procurement world or anywhere else, but what I'm seeing is people aren't appreciating these naturally enthusiastic ways of being, kindness, generosity, creativity, giving things out for free. Like, people don't enjoy that. We've talked about that. So my two parts are: A, what are the challenges that you've faced in your procurement career? But B, has your personality, your big, bold, generous, kind, creative personality, has that ever backfired in any way? And if you could talk about both of those.
So first of all, thank you for describing me that way. I'm not sure whether that's always true. I can tell you there are for sure people who would never say that I'm generous or something like that, and there are for sure people who would never say that I'm nice and kind, because of course it always depends a bit on how you meet people, right? I mean, sometimes humans are playing roles, whether we like it or not. We are not always playing the same role. The roles are sometimes somewhat a bit changing. And of course, if you have to go into a very tough negotiation with a supplier, the supplier is not delivering the quality you need, or the supplier is offering you very bad prices or so, and then you're meeting in such an environment, the discussion is probably going to be a bit tougher. And that's why probably not all people who met with me in such an environment would say I'm kind and generous. But what I usually try is, and that's actually part of the very well-known Harvard negotiation principle, try to separate the personality from the problem, right? Just because I'm having different objectives like another person, that does not mean I can't like this person at the same time, right? I mean, we somehow might have to negotiate, and everyone for us from us is negotiating, of course, in the benefit of his employer at the end, and that's what all our employers expect from us. But that does not mean that after negotiation we cannot go for a cup of coffee or for a beer, and I think that's pretty important. So I'm really trying to separate the personal relationship and to appreciate people as persons. If I would have the impression whether within a corporate, and of course that happened as well before, that basically people are trying to leverage out my openness or generosity or something like that, which definitely sometimes it's there, then I might be able to close it quite quickly as well, and to basically say, okay, now we switch to a completely professional relationship, and this and this and this is what I can give you, nothing more, nothing less, that's it. So I would say it's also a bit the echo about what the other person is actually bringing up to the table, and I'm trying to kind of mirror that then a little bit.
Interesting. So basically, I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm hearing is it is the work that matters, and nothing else matters. So you don't care about judgment. You don't care about if they think you're generous or not, kind or not. None of that. Like, as long as the work is getting done and what they're bringing on the table.
I wouldn't say it that way. Of course, I would love to say yes, you're right, but we are humans. We are not machines. Huh? So of course, there are usually people that you like more and people that you like less. What I'm trying is to keep it a professional relationship to all the people the same way, and then I can still select who becomes a friend and who probably does not become a friend. What I am really very bad in, to be honest, is politics. And that's what I said to all my bosses in the last 20 years. If you expect me to do some kind of internal corporate politics or something like that, don't even hire me, because I'm not very diplomatic. If I have a problem, I usually go to the person and I say, listen, I have a problem. I'm not very good in packing the bad news into a good environment, let's say, and that's why, you know, to me it's openness did usually have the higher value to me than being nice to everyone. I do not necessarily need to die as everybody's darling, and I can live with that. And I think sometimes you have to be able to live with that.
Yeah, I hear that. That's fabulous. That's great. Yep. Okay, amazing. So Maria, talk a little bit about, you know, what is it that you notice in the Asian market, which is drastically or starkly different from what you're seeing? Like what is preventing Asia and the Europe and Americas to start to become almost the same? Like, what is it that Asia still has to offer that South America doesn't? Or why can't America make the same kind of cheap products that China is making? Like what are the big differences that you're seeing in all the markets? The fact that you have an eye on all of
that. Well, I mean, you know, we all have differences in our history, and that's absolutely clear. And obviously, we somehow transport this history to the present world as well, which also means that the people in different regions of the world came from different backgrounds, and it's not easy to just switch this off. Huh? It's you have different beliefs sometimes. And that's probably what makes us different in the very beginning. Now, to be honest, I think most products, or at least industrial products, where I'm engaged with since throughout all my career, I would say theoretically you can probably manufacture each and every product in each and every region of the world, and I don't think there is any place in the world where you cannot do either this or either that. But of course, somehow clusters of materials are developing together. For example, I remember that when I started with the whole Asia sourcing stuff more than 20 years ago, it was actually clear that if you wanted to source electronics and you wanted to do that in Asia, then you rather go to Hong Kong, you cross the border and go to Shenzhen, because that's where all the electronics was. And nowadays it developed into other regions as well, and you actually find electronics also in other regions of the world, and specifically also in other regions of China. I mean, nowadays you can get the same stuff also from Shanghai, and I think we are coming step by step closer and closer. I also have a bit of experience about sourcing in South America, and I can tell you, South America, in many cases, some South American countries can do exactly what Asia is doing. The question rather is also where probably also the sales markets are. I think the reason why we had a big move to Asia within the last 20 years, a continuous move towards Asia, was also because there are also the sales markets that are growing drastically. I mean, the population in Asia is growing drastically. Then you have more and more potential consumers who can actually afford to buy new products and stuff like this. And that, of course, then on the other side also generates an offering. And then you have industries where I also experienced that they are just following other industries, for example. One very typical thing is that obviously the textile industry moved to many different Asian countries within the last 20 years. And I was for a certain time in textile machinery, and it's somehow natural that also textile machinery did actually move closer towards that region. And was actually going over to Asia, because where the end product is needed, also the previous products like the textile machinery is probably needed in the region where the textiles are made as well, right? So sometimes it's also really a question of cluster. I mean, why should someone start a big textile machinery company in South America, for example, or in South Africa as another example? Theoretically, you could do that, but then you would still export most of your products into the direction of Asia, right? Because you would actually go to India, to China, to Bangladesh, and to all the countries where the big textile manufacturing is taking place.
Interesting. So talk a little bit more about this, Maria. Like, what I'm curious is, every country has its own fashion, culture, style, what they wear, what their high street is, what their preferences or tastes are. When you're doing this kind of, textile or even like healthcare stuff, like supply and procurement, how do you customize it to the country that you're, getting from and taking to? What is the degree of customizing? What is the degree of, not touching it and just letting it be and see? Like how do you intervene in that?
That pretty much depends on the product. Of course, the way of, for example, also doing drawings or something like that is quite different in Asian countries. So what we are doing, if our European customers come to us and they actually request us to manufacture something for them, we usually start a translation somehow. And if I say translation, that does not mean the real language only. That also means the style of documenting, because in some countries you actually document more and you need to give more detailed explanation, and in other countries it's somewhat clear, right? And there we definitely tailor it. And then of course we are also usually evaluating the product that we are going to source, and we actually rate whether it is a fit for the region or not a fit for the region. There are sometimes parts where customers approach us and they actually want us to source something for them, where we basically say, this is not really a fit for the regions we are doing business. just because that technology is probably not very much there, or there are other different challenges. An example for products which can sometimes be difficult in China, for example, are products that are surface treated, like for example, if they have to be zinc coated or something like that. There are some specific zinc coatings which are very, very difficult to get in China. And usually we would, a customer who approaches us for that, like for example, for medical zinc coatings, we would usually reject because we just see that this is not the fit. But sometimes we can also offer alternatives, and we just offer alternative coatings or something like that. Or another example is, for example, about sand casting. Sand casting is something which in China is not very widely available. But for example, that's something where India is pretty strong in, and that also means that for sand casted parts in the past, that was somehow automatically driving me towards India. And of course, if it was not yet clear what technology is going to be used for a part, you could probably even tailor it by that, right? You could theoretically say, hey, if I have a specific part, I can either do it machined or I can do it by doing it via casting. And then you could theoretically say, okay, where do I want to go with this part? Where do I want to manufacture this part? And if you go to a country where castings are strong, then you rather go and do it in a casting process. And if you go to a country where castings are not that strong, then you don't do it. So yes, I would definitely say that we sometimes tailor the technologies also a bit to the sourcing market, or we sometimes, or of course, we also select the sourcing market based on the technology we need. And then yes, there is a kind of a final step where we definitely say the way of approaching the process is actually also different from country to country. There is a completely different way to approach the sourcing process if we are sourcing in one country compared to sourcing it in another country. And we usually tailor-make that. So in some countries, it's important that you build up the personal relationship first, and that you are actually that it actually is then followed by the business. And there are other countries which are much more practically oriented. You first send drawings, you first align on the product and stuff like this, and then you get it anyway. And that's what we usually try to the way we are usually trying to approach it. What's important for us is specifically in the markets where we are really sourcing a lot, we are really always doing that via local people. So these local people always help to translate somehow the cultural and probably also technological differences, right? I mean, my own people in China are usually Chinese, and except the two Westerners that we have in the factory, we are doing everything with local people, and that also means that they are speaking the same language and they are sharing the same mentality with our suppliers. And I think that makes a big difference.
How interesting. Tell me, Mario, do you ever worry that you will stop being the middleman between the two? Like how do you maintain your role and your company? Because I can see a world where there will be no need for somebody to be running this operation. I mean, the two companies could just like work with each other. Does that worry you ever?
To be honest, we don't do anything to protect it. We just hope and count on that our service speaks for itself. You know, of course, I would say 80% of our customers, they could do it themselves anyway, even today. And they still do it via us. So there must be a reason, right? And of course, sometimes I asked customers before, and I actually said, what's, you know, specifically since I only joined the company a few months ago, I really talked to customers and said, why are you doing it via us instead of doing it yourself? And there various different reasons why customers are doing that. Some of them, they actually say they don't want the upfront investment because, of course, if they want to do it themselves, they need to hire their own people in China in order to do it, for example. While in our case, they can access an organization which is already there. And we have a total of 70 people in China right now. So that's quite an organization which we already established, and we have the processes in place. And of course, doing all the upfront investment to do it yourself is probably something that holds most of our customers back to do it. But of course, there are also customers that are big enough that they could easily do this upfront investment. We have other customers who, for example, say they stay with us because they want to have the IP protection that we are providing. So most of the drawings that we are going out to our suppliers with are actually anonymized, which also means that our supplier do not know who the customer is. Now that's actually not to protect our business, it's rather to protect the business of our customers, because many of our customers actually don't want the supplier to know for whom exactly they are working. So if they would do it directly, they would basically also have to undisclose or to disclose this information, right? And that's just what they don't want. So many brands do actually say we don't want the suppliers to finally know who they are working for, and that's another asset that we can provide. And then last but not least, and that was just something which was mentioned by a customer to me about a week ago, because I actually specifically asked him, why are you doing the business with us? Because he has a plant in Shanghai, which is like 5 kilometers from ours. So theoretically, he could buy it from his intercompany plant, right? And I actually asked him why he's not doing that. And then he said, you know, Mario, it's pretty simple. This plant has to buy a lot of stuff for their own local operations. If I am coming and I'm asking stuff for my Europe operations and I request them to source, for them it's just an additional burden. They don't like to do it. They will do it because they are my internal suppliers, but probably the service level that I'm getting is not very well. On the other side, for us, you know, in our eyes, he's a customer, and of course, every customer is important, right? So he is getting the service level he obviously expects from us. So yeah, I think that's what kind of protects, let's say, our future business automatically. And then, of course, you know, like technology-wise, we have a lot of engineers, so we are really supporting our customers. Our engineers are analyzing the stuff. We have 2 engineers in Switzerland, a team of 6 engineers over in China, and they work together very closely. And we actually also go back to the customer and say, hey, you should change this and that in your product in order to make it easier to manufacture, faster to manufacture, cheaper to manufacture. And I think this additional value add that we provide is also something that our customers actually like. And it's getting more and more important.
No, that's super helpful. So what I'm hearing is you don't just manage the supply chain, you also manage your service that you're providing. It's such an exquisite level of delivery and work and management that you almost become irreplaceable because you just like worth the cost in every way. So that's excellent, and that's excellent, I think, learning for many of us who sometimes just do things without thinking about, are we going to be replaced by machines or somebody else, and how do we keep becoming irreplaceable in this world? No, that's excellent advice, Mario, and I feel like
no one is really irreplaceable. But I think it's better to do it really by the service level than to introduce some kind of blocking process or contracts with our suppliers or customers or something like that in order to block them out. And then, of course, you know, we have some access to a supply market. Since we are doing everything with local Chinese people, we have access to suppliers that are not even speaking English, right? Which, as an international company, you would probably not be able to access very easily, or you would anyway also have to introduce Chinese people into the organization in order to do it.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Maria. That was super helpful. Okay, so I love asking this question because, especially because I work with young, gifted kids, and I'm always thinking what is going to be the future of things, so that I can, like, navigate how I'm working, what I'm teaching them, what I'm exposing them to. What do you think is going? What do you predict is going to be the future of global procurement, especially the industrialization? How do you think it's going to change? Like in India, the industrial revolution started, and suddenly there were factories, and people are sitting in rows, and people were sewing and doing all of that. So from a very like art cultural background, we got very industrialized. What do you think is going to be the future of industrialization in global procurement?
Predictions are different, specifically if they are focused to the future. But let me make a guess. I would still say we hopefully become even more closer together than we are today, because I think for me international trade and stuff like that is always also a peace project. At the end, if you do trading with your neighbor country, you probably don't fight wars with it, and that's why I see a big potential still in international trade. And I really hope that we do business with each other instead of doing war with each other, and that's definitely for the benefit of all of us. In the end, I think we will become closer to each other, and there will be additional drivers. We already see that with our customer base. We more and more get requests from our customers, not only to supply from China to Europe, but for example, also to supply from China to all over Asia, just because also for some of our customers, the big growth markets are over in Asia. And I think this kind of local for local strategy, a term that we often hear in the procurement world in the last 10 years, I think that's really something which is getting more and more famous, and which is getting more and more really being the driver behind global procurement and global trade. So like 20 years ago, my bosses sent me out to the world to bring the best quality and best priced product back to Europe, right? And I would say nowadays, younger people coming into the global procurement world, they are more and more not being sent out with that assignment. They are rather being sent out with the assignment to figure out how we can supply different regions, and from where we can supply different regions as well. So I think the local for local will be a big driver. And many people a few years ago usually said, the global sourcing is to somehow come to an end. And I usually say, I don't think it's going to end. I think we are just going to see a different reason and a different type of global sourcing in the future.
No, I fully hear you. I think as much as we like to believe that nationalism, localization is all going to, stop some global sourcing, I still feel like the only way developing countries will keep developing is by producing goods that are cheaper than what developed countries have, and we'll keep this trade going. Do you think that's going to keep going? Like what should we fear? So what is our risk analysis? I see that this will keep going in the direction that it's going, but like if you were to stay, Mario, in this industry for another 10 years, what would you fear? You sound very optimistic, but like, what would you fear?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely risks, and yeah, I sound optimistic because I'm naturally an optimist. But of course, there are also some setbacks that might happen, and some risks that might take place. That's absolutely clear. And for me, one of the biggest risks we are trying to manage is, of course, how to reduce also the CO2 footprint of our global sourcing, because that's something where companies are focusing more and more. On the other side, it's exactly as you say, if we want, as a world community, if we want developing countries to develop further, we cannot just stop to trade with them. So we need to find a balance in that. So yes, environmental aspects become more and more important, and on the other side can also be a threat to some businesses. Where I also see a big threat is really if bad political things happen. I mean, in Europe we now have a war between Russia and Ukraine, which is not very much in favor of us, and that makes business difficult. And of course, there are also possibilities about things that might happen in China. And if you follow the news a bit in the last few days, you see that China is not always amused about what the rest of the world is doing, and that might also result in issues. So these are definitely things that we are preparing, and why we are also setting up a bigger footprint for us as a company, being present in the future also in additional countries, and being not only a bridge between mainly China and Europe, but probably also between other countries in Europe. So some kind of diversification is definitely something that drives us as well. So yes, I see threats, even though I'm generally an optimist.
No, and I feel like when you kind of like holistically keep navigating your professional path, you automatically become an optimist. There isn't much to worry about. If not this, then that. If not that, then that, right? So
Yeah.
it's easy to remain kind of an optimist. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to pause for a minute. Any questions at this point?
Hi, this is Bhavna here from India. So I have a question for you that I have understood that your company is like a bridge between customer and suppliers. So I want to know an example incidents wherein a product was lots of technicality was involved and you found many challenges because the customer's name was not to be disclosed to the suppliers, right? So you have to master the market also. So you must have found some challenges in couple of incidences. So can you just share one experience and how did you fix it?
Yes, there are definitely moments where we have that, specifically since we are often involved in the development of the products of our customers in a very early stage. And that also sometimes means we, throughout our suppliers, we are even doing prototypes and stuff like that. As an example, we have a company who is very strong in food packaging. So they are doing food packaging production lines for us, and basically for one of our customers. But the food standards are not always the same in all countries, for example, and that can make technical differences as well, right? Because you might have some kind of pressed plastics granulate, which would be allowed to use for food processing in one country, but not in another one. And that's exactly why we have such a strong engineering force as well, and why we really bring the engineering knowledge of other countries in. So, you know, our engineers on the Swiss side, they are usually very much involved together with our customers. Our engineers on the Chinese side, they are usually very much involved with our suppliers. And that's how we really make use of that knowledge on both sides in order to find the best solution. In that particular case, for example, we made trials with several different plastic granulates, and we manufactured the identical product with a lot of different base materials, really as a test, and sent it to our customer. And then in the end, our customer was validating and figuring out which are acceptable and which are not. And yeah, that needed a bit more time. That's absolutely clear. But in the end, it's better to spend some time, but then have a perfect product instead of being quick, but have a non-perfect product.
Wow, that's really great. So as you rightly said that it's like when lots of technicalities are involved, we should go for a prototype first, use agile methodology and fix that. Means unless the correct product is in hand. Yeah, that's great to know.
Exactly. And
yeah, thank you.
Don't get me wrong, we are also not always successful. I just had a discussion with with a customer that I visited last week, where we actually had 2 sub-assemblies, and we finally agreed with him that we are not going to manufacture them in China, just because the way we would have to adjust the product would not really fit the requirements of the customer 100% anymore. And this is also, I think, something where we need to be honest with our customers. So if we see that we can't properly do it, we also go back and basically tell our customers that you know, for this particular part or for this particular assembly, we are probably not the right provider. And I think that's also important, because this honesty is then also rewarded by a customer. A customer, if you give him a clear statement and tell them that you cannot do it, this is always preferable compared to trying to hide something and then basically go around.
So Mario, where do you see yourself expanding in the next 10 years?
If you say myself, you mean the company, or you?
Yeah,
or,
the company. What other areas do you think you could take your company to?
This is really not yet clear. We are right now checking a lot of different options, because first of all, we are usually not the kind of a company who always does the same like the others. So we would like to find our own way of solving problems, and not just copy the strategies that probably other companies on the market are doing. We are really checking a lot of different options, which could be other Asian countries, which could be South America, which could be Eastern Europe or Southern Europe as well, because there is also some requirements on that. So we are really checking a lot of different options on how to make our footprint bigger and specifically more global. Decision is not yet taken, because on the other side, you know, we always have to keep in mind we are a rather small company, obviously. So it's not that we can invest endless money and grow in 5 different regions at the same time, right? So we need to stay focused as well.
Amazing. Yeah, it's easy, right? Like, I've worked with organizations where the creativity has wanted them to do too many things, and I think sometimes that's a deterrent. To stay focused and balanced is always a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, we've got about 7 minutes. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I'll just open it up for everyone else. Mario, what would be your advice to someone who is getting into the same market as you? I mean, you spent 25 years in this, so you built kind of, you know, solid understanding, brand, reputation, probably language, probably connections, relationships. What would be advice to someone getting into this supply chain right now?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I'm good in giving advices, because I think every individual needs to find an own way to solve problems. But trying to still give some hints. I think it's important, if you go into the supply chain field. In supply chain, you have a lot of technical and analytical stuff that you're doing, right? I mean, there are all kinds of formulas on how to do forecast and how to do planning and stuff like this. So it's a function that usually looks very mathematical. And I always tell the people going specifically into global sourcing, global supply chain roles, I always tell them, don't forget about the people behind. At the end, you know, analyzing is nice, but an analysis does not really gives you the result, right? It only gives you a direction. And then you still need to have the right connections and the right people and the right understanding on each other in order to bring it alive. And I think people management skills are definitely underestimated still in the supply chain world, but I think they are really important. So go into that field if you are interested in people, and if you are interested in achieving something with people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and stuff like this. I think that's then the biggest enlightening that you can actually get in the procurement supply chain world.
I love that, and I feel like everyone has to come in with their own gumption and take their own risks, and, you know, make their own mistakes and learn for themselves.
Yeah, you never start with the mistake, huh?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, amazing. Thank you for that. That's really good because I feel like a lot of people, Mario, that we get give like solid advice. And what I love about you is you just speak about your experience and what you've learned, and then leave it open for interpretation for everyone else to make their own decisions. So that's just something I really respect about you. And thank you for being this person on our platform.
Oh.
Any other questions at this point for Mario?
Hello, can you hear me? This is Simon Kong. Dear host and dear Maria, this is Simon Kong. I am in China. My question for Maria is, because of the COVID, you cannot travel, or you can only travel less than ever. So, what do you do to resolve this situation, but still do the procurement or sourcing activities well, instead of no travel or no direct talking or visiting suppliers?
Yeah, this is a challenge, I must say. Huh? This is a challenge, Simon. Specifically, I mean, I could theoretically say, it's all easy because we have our people over there in China, and they do the job, and they definitely do a great job. And of course, that's our market proposition, of course, and therefore it's something we need. But on the other side, yeah, it's difficult for me personally as well, because I now started already 7 months ago in this role, and I still never had the chance to meet my own team and my own company in China myself, which is definitely a setback. So this is something to deal with it. I would say on the operational side, so far it doesn't make us much trouble, because we have a great team and we are established since 12 years in China. So it's not that we were completely new there when COVID hits us. The company was existing already for more than 10 years when COVID hit in. And therefore we have a working organization in China that works. So from that point of view, that's definitely an advantage, and it doesn't make us much problem. But of course, the further development right now is probably not as fast as we would wish it to be sometimes.
Yeah, thank you, Mario. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Amazing. And I feel like, Simon, to piggyback on what you said, I mean, now they're saying monkeypox is rising, and like there's going to be another wave of something. So I feel like our world has now got very agile with how to take things off when the world shuts down. Technology has become a good friend. I think there's no other way out. So yeah.
Meet with people all over the world in this virtual room here, huh? which is very cool way of cooperating as well. Doesn't really replace 100% the personal touch, that's clear, but many things nowadays are solvable.
For sure. Thank you so much for that. This was amazing. This was really, really, really interesting, Mario. I love your market. I love what you're doing. I think it's really interesting. I'm going to read up more about this because it's just given a lot of ideas on how and what could work where. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for just like being so, open to doing this despite your busy schedule, and you're managing one of the biggest populations of the world. So like coming and being with us really means a lot. So thank you for being a part and taking out time. And that's it from Procurement League. Thank you.